Welcome to Quiltripping Travel with Rose, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring award-winning travel writer and photographer Rose Palmer. Hey everybody, it is time to go quilt tripping with Rose, and today she is taking us to Norway, and she spent quite a bit of time there, and we have links in the episode notes, of course, to quiltripping.com, but also to some of her articles in regards to Norway, Europe, and then one on shebuystravel.com where she talks about cruising solo. But anyway, she's going to tell us a little bit about the best ways to see Norway, the best time to visit, the Northern Lights. How many people go to Norway just for that epic experience? And then some of the cruises you can, have. And then how to budget for this, because apparently Norway ain't that cheap. So we're going to find out more about it. So how are you doing, Rose?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, doing good. I'm excited to hear about Norway. I've never been. And I have family roots there. So
do you?
Yes.
Do you know where?
No, not yet. No, I know we're Norwegian and have Viking blood and all kinds of things going on historically in our family between the Vikings, Norway, and then the Isle of Man and England. So stuff went down between that area with our family. And we're not even close to getting all of that, but we have witches involved and warlocks. But no,
maybe we should be talking about you instead.
No, I think we need to talk about Norway, and Norway has trolls. Come on. Look at that guy look at the guy doing all the troll art everywhere, the public art of trolls. Have you seen those big trolls in like Seattle? And we saw one in Kentucky. He's doing these giant trolls, these wooden trolls everywhere in forests and places. So trolls are cool. Did you see trolls in Norway?
Only in the gift shops.
Are you kidding me?
Lots of them in the gift shops, but they have a mythology around them. There were a lot of children's books. I think on my first trip I brought home one for my grandsons, but I was not fortunate enough to see a real live troll. I guess I didn't go over the right bridge
I was going to say you need to go under the bridge.
Under the bridge.
I don't know. They're little gatekeepers, right? They want money.
Yeah, we drove over the bridges, but we didn't go under the bridges. Well, actually, on the Quiltripping ship, we did cruise underneath some of the really big bridges, but they were very modern bridges, so I'm not sure trolls hang out in the modern bridges. I think
don't they always have a goat too? The troll and the billy goat. What's that coming from? I don't know where that came from in my mind, but there's something about a billy goat and the bridge and I don't know, some story somewhere in my childhood. But I love that you went to Norway, but you did a lot of travel through there. So there was like at one point, wasn't there a road trip at some point, or was that Iceland?
Well, I did a road trip in Iceland too, but this past September, my husband and I spent a month driving through Norway because he can't cruise because he gets too seasick. So I actually started my Norway journey 3 years ago on a typical big ship Princess cruise along the coast of Norway. It was something I'd always wanted to do, and it was not long after COVID, and they had a lot of really good deals with no single supplements. So I thought, all right, let me take advantage of this while I can. And I'm glad I did because it was a beautiful trip. It was at the end of July into August, and the weather was beautiful, sunny, clear. And the ship took us. We started in Southampton, England, went over across to Norway, went up the coast, stopped at along the coast in different towns, larger towns, went into a couple of the big fjords, stopped at a few of the small towns at the end of the fjords. And then we went all the way up north past the Arctic Circle to the northernmost point on the Norwegian mainland, and then turned back around and, cruised the coast and stopped at other places and then ended up back in Southampton. It was I want to say it was a 2 week, 12-day, 2 week trip, something like that.
Oh man,
And
that
it
is
it
epic.
it was beautiful, and it really whetted my appetite, especially going through the fjords. We had 2 different days where we cruised through Sogne Fjord, which is the longest fjord in Norway, and then we did another one. And the ship was going very slowly. I was fortunate because I had a balcony cabin, and I just sat there on the balcony and just watched the scenery slide by. And it was the typical scenery that you see of Norway. You've got the large mountains. It's a deep cut fjord that was cut by glaciers. Large mountains, just steeply, the sides coming up steeply from the water, and then you've got every quarter mile you've got a waterfall coming down, and
Wow.
and then little pockets on the bank of green farms with red houses.
I
Just
love those pictures.
yeah,
Right on the
yeah,
water. And then
right on
there's
the water.
the houses right on the water, which I
Yes.
think are amazing. Was it what was it like, because you did this road trip, which was like 4 weeks, right?
Hmm.
And then you've done all these cruises there too. So it's kind of an interesting thing that you were able to first do the cruise. So you see Norway from the water into Norway.
Hmm.
Then you're like all over Norway. I mean, you pretty much became a local in Norway for, I mean, a
Well,
month is a month,
it's a
right?
big it's a big country. It's a very long country. It's not wide, but it's very long. So we spent quite a bit of time driving it. Um, but I'm glad I did it both ways, because you can't say which is better. It's apples and oranges. You get a
Right.
different perspective when you're cruising down the middle of this big long fjord on a ship, regardless of the size of the ship, whether it's one of their ferries or uh, uh, one of the day trip type boats, or whether you're on a bigger cruise ship. You're in the middle of it and you're looking up and out. When we drove along, so there's a road along the edge of Sogne Fjord, and my husband and I drove that to go to some of the same locations that I was able to visit on the ship. Um, you're getting a different perspective. So you're looking across the fjord. Hopefully there's a few places you can stop and look at the scenery, but there really weren't. And these roads that wind their way along the fjord, some of them were really narrow. They were basically one lane roads that were curvy. So we were taking our time and going slow and hoping that there was no oncoming traffic, which most of the time there wasn't. Um, and the locals are used to driving these kinds of roads, so they know what it's like. We were a little worried about being mostly on a one lane road, but we really didn't need to worry, because it really ended up being quite safe, and there were lots of little pull out bumps, so that if you saw a car coming, you just pulled over and let the other car pass, and then you went on your way. Um, but it's a different perspective, and so you get to
Mm.
see the farmhouses and the farms up close. You can see the sheep and the cows, and you're at obviously at water level versus being higher up on the ship. So it's different perspectives, and it's all beautiful.
So what is the best time to go? Like for people
Not
from,
September, which is when we went, because I didn't know when I planned this. So we went in September because that's when our wedding anniversary is, and that's when my husband's
oh,
birthday is. And so we like to travel in early September, especially to Europe, because by then most of the it's not as crowded and most of the tourists are gone. So we thought, oh, okay, let's go to Norway in September. Turns out it's their wettest month. That's when they get the most rain. So we didn't have a lot of clear skies. Um, when I cruised it at the end of July, August, it was the weather was beautiful. We had the clear blue skies, and that's also still the midnight sun season. So from about mid-Mayish to mid-August, kind of depending on the latitude, you have what they call midnight sun season, when it's light pretty much 24 hours a day. The sun doesn't really go far below the horizon, or if you're far enough north, doesn't go below the horizon at all. So you have a lot of daylight, which is nice for sightseeing. It's also the busier time of year because that's when people like to go travel.
Hmm.
Um, by the time we went in September, you're past that, and that's the other reason we went towards in September is because by the end of September we were hoping to be able to see the northern lights because now they're starting to lose daylight fairly quickly each day, and we actually we were very fortunate. We managed to see the northern lights on 4 different occasions. But again, you really it's to see the northern lights. It's a trifecta. You need to be in the right location. So you need to be far enough north above the Arctic Circle or near the Arctic Circle to be underneath that the donut shape that usually is the northern light
Hmm.
viewing area. You need good weather, and then you need to be looking in the right location.
Oh boy, here we go.
um, so it's got to be the right time of year. So we were fortunate that by the end of the September we did manage to catch it a couple of nights.
I know I have a friend who went out that way and they stayed in a like an igloo thing, but
Huh.
it's not an igloo
Okay,
in a
like the
field, like a
okay.
one of those plastic
Yeah.
bubbles kind of
Yep.
thing
Yep. Yep.
as a
Yep.
camping thing. And that way they were to see the northern lights, but they went in September.
Okay. So
So I'm just saying you're so right because they were all excited. Then they're like, well, it was kind of there, but we had clouds and rain.
yeah.
And so they were so bummed. So I think this is such an important thing to say, you know.
So
So,
yeah, I think probably for if you don't want wet weather and you don't want if you want clear skies and you want to see the northern lights, then obviously going in the colder months when it's clear is probably the better bet.
mm,
But yeah, so we when I was looking at places to stay, there were a lot of glamping opportunities throughout the country. They're very nature oriented, very much
mm,
so. Lots of people, we saw lots of people hiking and camping and just very outdoorsy. But there were the those igloo type accommodations.
hmm.
The what actually I chose to stay in was a mirrored a glass house basically. So it was a
Hmm.
one way type of glass,
Yeah. So
but that
people can't see in, you
right,
can
and
see
it
out.
was right. It was a big square, a big rectangle, and we could see out, but you couldn't see in. Instead of the igloo, and that was pretty cool. That was interesting. Unfortunately, it was overcast. It started clearing up a little bit, but we were able to see the lights just a tad. And what was really interesting is the camera, even when it was overcast, picked up the green
Oh,
hue on the clouds when the aurora was active. So while we weren't necessarily able to capture with our eyes the green, the camera was able to see it. Now, on a
that's
clear
amazing.
night when the northern lights were really strong, if they were strong enough, we could actually see it green with our eye. But usually it was tended to be more whitish with the green tinges. But the camera always picked it up as a bright green. But
Mm,
we had actually on our very last night, it was the end of September was our last night on mainland Norway before we were heading up to Svalbard. And we're on an island in a renovated fisherman's cottage. That's where we were spending a couple
oh,
of
neat.
days there just to relax and hopefully to see the lights. And that last night, everything was perfect. We were, the house that was facing the north. The sky was perfectly clear, and then the aurora was really active that night. And it danced. They say that it's dancing across the sky, but you're thinking, oh, what does that mean? But when you're standing there and you're watching it, and it's just moving and undulating and changing the way it looks, and it's going from a ribbon to a curtain to just almost the whole sky being covered. It's undescribable, and pictures don't capture it. They really don't. They capture a single moment,
Mm.
but you don't get that whole feeling of the movement. And videos kind of get it, but again, it's being
It's an
there in
experience.
person. Yes, because it was the whole sky. It was, we had a 180-degree view from one side to the other, and it was just moving across that whole expanse. It was
Wow.
incredible. It was amazing, and it's addictive. You see it once, and you want to see it again. And it lasted.
You're forever chasing. Yeah.
Yeah, that night was. I mean, it was a great way to end our trip in mainland Norway. But it just my husband eventually gave up at midnight after about 2-3 hours. That's the nice thing about seeing the Northern Lights in September is they seem to be a little earlier at night versus having to stay up later until 12,
Oh,
1 in the morning in the cold, and it's not as cold. That's the other advantage. So if you have good
oh,
weather, it's not a bad time of year to see them. It's just that the weather isn't as dependable. But
that's
we gave up at midnight.
interesting.
I stayed out a couple more hours just because I thought, I think at least 3 times I thought, okay, we're done, because they were fading, and I started putting my camera equipment away, and then it started back up again.
Oh,
Um,
and
yeah,
then you're like, okay, give me a glass of wine. I'm back out.
something
Gives
like
you,
that.
it gives you a good excuse. No, but I
Yeah.
did that in Wisconsin, a couple of years ago, and they were coming through, and there where we were, there's a lake, and there's a marsh. It's beautiful. We were watching bald eagles, but a storm came in at the same time. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. And people are saying, no, you got to go here. Here are the specific. People knew the specific points of where you need to be,
Hmm.
and and it just that one night that was supposed to be the epic one. Weather said, nah, not for you, not today. You're not seeing it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So but that's the thing. You can't. I think this is a really good point of talking about the fact of expectations when you travel. You know, you've got to understand what you are going there for. For you go to a destination wherever it is in the world, you may be going there for a specific thing. Like you may want to go to Africa with this intent to see a lion in the wild. I'm booked a safari and I'm going to see that. Well, did you make a reservation with the lion? Right?
Right. Did the zoo let them
So
out that day?
yeah, but but so you may really make it may really happen, which is fantastic, and you can
Right.
play law of attraction and manifest all you want. But nature has her own way.
Yes.
But understand, whatever you do on travel, you're going to see something that you never expected to see, and be open-minded about it because maybe that's what you were supposed to see.
Right. Right.
Universally. I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
not spiritually woo woo here, but like sometimes I think the universe has a way of saying, like, you may think you want to see this, but today the laws say you need to see this instead. And sometimes that completely changes your life. It transforms things. And that's the beauty, right?
It
You
is.
know, and to
It
also
is.
not give up, don't put all your camera gear away just as it's coming back, right? So it's a dance. The talking about the dance travel is that, isn't it?
It is. It is. I plan everything, do a lot of research. Um, I plan everything. I have a rough schedule of what or if I'm traveling with somebody else, with my husband, with whoever, want to do. But then at the same time, I try to make sure I know what the options are, because
Mm,
things can go wrong often, and inevitably something goes wrong each trip,
yeah.
because it just does. That's just life. But if I know what my options are, then I have choices, and I can
And you
figure
can
out,
make them
okay,
quickly.
this
Yeah.
road is closed because of a rock slide. Well, I can go and see something else instead, and go the other way, things like that. Um, so it just it's I go in hoping that I will do some certain things on my itinerary, but then at the same time the night before I'll look to see, oh, let me see what's going on in town tomorrow. And if there's
Hmm.
something interesting, we make a change. So
Detours are
detours.
part of travel and
Exactly.
life
Exactly.
and life.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
I love this. So there's these different seasons that you're talking about. So, um, you were saying also that Norway is not the cheapest country. So
No.
really planning is a good idea, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
It's quite pricey. Iceland is pricey. I thought Norway was even more expensive than Iceland. Um,
wow.
it's
And I think we get
going
the
on
two
a.
places confused, actually. I think I've done it on shows even.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
Well,
yeah, it
they
happens if you haven't been there, you know?
yeah, they kind of have a connected history, I guess, and some around some things with fishing industry and things like that. But yeah, we found Norway to be quite expensive, and in terms of I think seeing it that's more budget friendly. I think the cruises probably are more budget friendly because
Mm,
the food's included, your accommodations are included on the ship, depending on, you're paying for excursions. But renting the car, and especially because we did one-way rentals, the drop-off fees were huge. So
mm.
it was pricey, but
That's
you
a
have
good tip, though.
you have to budget. So you gotta, if you want to do it on your own, then you do need to make a plan, figure out what you're going to do, figure out your itinerary, and then look at the cost of the different elements of it, and then you have to plan for it and budget for it. Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, that's important. Yeah, I have a friend who went there and said the same thing and texted me. He's like, this place is expensive. What the heck just happened? But you've got to think how remote it is in a way, right? Isn't Norway kind of remote? From, I don't know.
Parts
Why
of it,
wouldn't?
yeah. So parts of it are quite remote, and one of the things I talk about in one of the stories I wrote is, so the second cruise I did was with Hurtigruten. It was it was before the road trip with my husband. I left about 10 days early, and I did a week long cruise with Hurtigruten. And Hurtigruten is a Norwegian cruise line, and they started in the late 1800s as a ferry system to connect the communities north in the northern, central and northern part of Norway, and be able to connect them because they didn't have roads. The majority of these communities are along the coast because that's how, it's easier to get around by boat. There weren't any roads. And so they connected them and they gave them a way to transport their goods, to bring in goods. Um, and now Hurtigruten, they still do that. So they're still,
Mm.
their coastal cruise still connects, I think, like 30 stops if you do the whole starting south, going all the way north, and then coming back. I think it's something like
Oh,
30, a little bit over 30 different towns that they stop in on that. It's like an 11, 12-day cruise. And it still acts as a ferry system, and you can put your car on there and go from point A to point B. They still
ooh,
transport
that's cool.
goods. They transport people as they're trying to get from point A to point B. Or you can do it as a tourist and book a cabin and just cruise along the coastline. They offer excursions where you will get off in the morning. They'll take you to see whatever it is that the excursion is designed to do that day, and then meet up with the ship again later in the day when it's docked at the next port, or to get back on. So that's that's one option of cruising with Hurtigruten, which I still want to do that one because it just sounds really interesting, just to go in and out of these little ports and see these little towns all along the coastline. The type of cruise that I did is what they call their signature journeys,
Mm-hmm.
and I the one I did was called it was a Svalbard, and I only did it one way. I started up in Longyearbyen in Svalbard, which is an island, a set of islands north of Norway, and then from there we cruised for a week along the coast with a different stop every day and the option for excursions. And that one is more like is managed more like a regular cruise, where it's not a ferry where people get and supplies get on and off. It's just you board at the beginning, you get off at the end. They have excursions every day. They have lectures about what you're going to see. They have kind of more organized program. Um, and I enjoyed that one very much as well. It's a very different experience from the bigger cruise ship like Princess. So
Mm.
their ships are, I think the one I was on, the MS Trollfjord, which was their flagship, was I think a maximum of 500 passengers versus 3,000 on one of the big ships. And I think we only had about 320 on that particular cruise that I was on. So it's a smaller ship. It's a more intimate experience, a lot quieter, which for me really works. Just
Me too. Yeah,
very,
that's cool. Yeah.
very peaceful experience. A lot of windows, huge two-story observation lounge in the
Mm.
front of the ship with lots of seating and a bar where you can sit and watch the scenery go by.
Mm.
Big library with windows, lots of other seating areas throughout the ship. And then the other thing that I really appreciated and didn't know about until after I had done the Hurtigruten cruise, and didn't really appreciate until I was driving around Norway on my own, is that I got a really good taste of Norwegian food on the Hurtigruten cruise. They source 80% of their food and supplies for the cruise from Norwegian producers.
Okay,
So
that's great.
all the meat, all the fish, the bread,
Oh, so it's
all the
yeah.
bread is made locally. They
Oh,
may not make it, they might bake it on the ship, or they may just, um, or they'll get it from local bakers. All the little condiments. So I got to taste all sorts of little different varieties and different ways of prepared herring, um, salmon, just and the vegetables,
mm.
ice cream, made in Norway. So really, at all the meals, I had a really good taste of locally produced uh, ingredients and then locally produced on the ship menu.
Yeah,
And
and
the
you did I think this is so great that you have the experience of traveling on land, right? Road
hmm
tripping and being on the cruise ship. So like the cruise ship says this is the local stuff,
and that
then
was,
you go
believe it
out.
or not, it's hard to find.
So you're finding like this elevated experience, and then you go out there and go, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going
Um,
to be able to replicate that?
right, and it was actually a lot harder, believe it or not. Maybe it's counterintuitive, but driving on our own, you grab something to eat wherever you happen to be. I
Right.
planned a couple of meals at nicer local restaurants, but in general, it's like, all right, we're here, we're hungry. What are we going to have? And so it's one place, and especially as we were driving in out of the way areas, there weren't a lot of choices. At one point, we were looking for a place to go for dinner, and I'm looking on Google Maps and I'm putting in, searching for restaurants, and the only thing that comes up is a Thai sushi restaurant. I'm like, Okay, well, I guess that's what we're eating. Um,
Yeah.
so it was actually a little bit more of a challenge to eat local, believe it or not, when we were
So they're not
driving.
that touristy. It doesn't sound touristy then.
No, no. In the bigger cities like Oslo, obviously that's going to
Yeah.
be a little bit more touristy. Bergen, which is also very popular, definitely more touristy. But once we got off the beaten track, no, not at all. And
Wow.
once we got into the northern part of Norway, we tended to stay at more um, like apartment house type
Okay.
accommodations. So
Okay.
I purposely wanted to stay in renovated old fishermen's cottages.
Cool.
So we just went to the grocery store and picked up things and.
So what was okay, so this is the thing I wanted to ask you is like
Hmm.
what was it like in regards to the produce we can get? Like here in the States, if you can get farm fresh from local farmers that are doing organic, doing the best they can, you're going to get, or you grow it in your backyard, you're going to get the best flavors you can. But I'm going to say there's like, it's so hard sometimes
Yeah.
to find flavor, right? Until
Yep.
you go to Europe or like in South Africa, we were very blessed with amazing produce just in your back. Things just grow.
Hmm.
Um, things change in our country in agriculture, and we lost flavor over feeding people at a better rate. Let's put it that way. Um, So in Norway, things are going to be, other countries are way more expensive. We're about to climb up even further, I think. We're seeing so many changes in our world. And, Europe is not cheap. England is not
No.
cheap.
Nope.
And so America is bickering and everything. I'm like, well, you travel out and see. It's everywhere is like New York, or California, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
and it
but
wasn't.
the flavors are better. So like that was my thing is um cheaper isn't always better.
Right.
So I don't know where we are in our country. That's a whole new thing happening. So we'll figure that out as we go. But in Norway, what was the produce and things like that? I mean, were the flavors good?
Um, so again, we were kind of when we were doing the grocery shopping, we tended to be in out of the way places in small towns. So the markets were small,
Okay.
so it was kind of limited, and plus then
Yeah, you don't want
when
to
I'm
sit there
when
and
I'm
make a
traveling like
five
that,
course meal. Yeah.
no, I'm looking for things that are easy to grab and easy to prepare. So we're talking, grilled cheese and
Okay.
uh
Yeah.
soups that we can just heat up, and apples and bananas, things like that
Mm.
transport well, that will keep without refrigeration because
I'm
um,
very familiar with this lifestyle. We
you would
travel
be
full
right,
time. We are very
right.
familiar.
So
Yes.
we kind of have our uh, grocery list of typical things we buy when we do things like this. Salami and hard cheeses and crackers and maybe
And
some
there's nothing wrong
cucumbers.
with salamis and hard cheeses and bring
No,
the cheese.
no,
Yeah,
right.
charcuterie, everyone, is
Exactly.
not it's a meal.
It is.
Don't put it as a side dish. It's a meal for
Yes.
some of us.
Yes. And then we'll do bread and cheese and eggs, will
Hmm.
commonly, because then you can make French toast or scrambled eggs for breakfast. You
Yes,
can
here we
make
go. Yep.
you can make grilled cheese for dinner with a bowl of soup, and you're good to go. So that
No,
kind of
I
tends
love
to
this
be.
conversation. Yeah, we should do a whole show on food on the road because it's
the
true. It's
the
true. It's
hardest
so,
part, yeah, was because the packaging's different, right? So identifying, so for instance, the soup, I'm looking for cans, right? I'm looking for Campbell's concentrated type of soup. Well, that's not
yeah.
what they had. They had fully prepared soup in bags.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
um, so just kind of being open to looking
Yes.
on the shelf and figuring out what it is and then using your phone to
No,
translate,
that is so
using Google
funny
Translate
because
to
I
make
saw
sure.
somebody do something on social media the other day about like they have this in bags. And I'm like, well, because in South Africa, when I was growing up there, they had milk in bags. And so everybody, and I don't drink milk, but everybody who drank milk had a milk bag in a jug, like a little
Uh-huh.
plastic jug in their refrigerator. So they would cut open the top and just
Hmm.
pour out of it. And people drank a lot of milk. The milk was,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know. We've also changed. I think milk was part of, and still is in this country with some people, but milk, people drink milk. And then I don't see many people drinking milk that I have one friend. Hey, Tiffany, I know you love your milk. I know she's listening. Um, I mean, people drank milk as part of
Hmm.
what they drink,
Yeah.
I drink wine and water. That's it. And coffee, excuse me.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
and tea. All right, my list is getting longer. Stupid. But the reality is, yeah, it's very interesting about the bags because things are different. Yeah, we want to
Hmm.
go for the
Yeah.
cans. We go for like, this is what we do. And so I think that's what I love about what we do in our travels is going to grocery stores because
I
even
do.
a
Yep.
Walmart will change
Yeah.
according to where you go. Even a Walmart.
Oh, I go to
Seriously.
Costco's. I go to when we did slightly off topic, we I looked for Costco in Norway, but they didn't have them because it's a good place to get like a case of whatever um for a month-long trip, right?
And good
I wouldn't
Kirkland
do it for
wine.
just a couple of days, but when we did 2 weeks in Iceland, Reykjavik had its Costco. We went there, we got our gas there for the car, and then we got our case of water and case of soda or iced tea and then we got again some charcuterie things and some fruit but yeah, and then it's interesting to see the more regional things that they sell for that are from the area and that are for the locals that buy it. So it is kind of a glimpse into the culture. You wouldn't think so, but then on the flip side, what was interesting was to see how much of what we buy, the same brands, the same products, are there as well. It really
Mm-hmm.
brings home what a global economy it really is when you go into a Walmart or a Costco in other parts of the world, because you realize, wow, this is exactly the same thing that I buy at home. But then at the same
Yeah,
time, you've got other products which are very regional and very local. So yeah.
I'm always about going to the small person to shop. Like if you can buy your picnic food from there, go there,
Hmm.
because you're going
I
to get
do that too.
there.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, if there's this balance.
The
But if
little
you're
market.
buying, yeah, if you're buying water and you're buying the real basics, like, yeah. But if you really want to have a sandwich from local made food, go to the local shops, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's weird when we lived in Mexico, my dentist, he became a family friend and because of his passport he could go further places. He was able to go to Cuba and stuff when we couldn't, and so he brought back rum and he was like, he'd call us up, he'd go, I got rum for you girls, I got tequila here, and anyway, he's a great guy. And Ensenada was going in Baja, right? Was going through this thing of getting a bigger airport and then bringing in some of these big box stores. And I remember sitting with him and I'm like, Eduardo, like, really? And we had this discussion and I said, look, man, this is not doing I understand it, but like they're dry, this was back in the 90s, right? And I'm like,
Hmm.
into the 90s, right? Yeah, middle 90s. Yeah. Because we were going to do our magazine out there. Yeah, that didn't work. But anyway, detour as always.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there having this conversation going, look, I've seen what these big box stores have done. And at that point, it was ruining small town America. This was kind
Mm-hmm.
of the beginning of this. And he goes, but we don't care. And I said, what do you mean you don't care? He goes, this is what we want. And even if you see that, this is what our people now want,
Mm-hmm.
right? I understand what you're saying, but if we see that, we want that. And then
Yeah.
the people want that. They want it. And I swear to God, I watched Pizza Hut coming in, McDonald's. I watched like all, I think even Costco. Yeah. Come in and then they had Pelicanos. It was like Pelicans, um, which was kind of like a copy of, but there's nothing like getting the mangoes from the mango guy,
Right. Right. Yep.
there still is nothing like that. But if you're getting packaged water, seriously, yeah. And if you're going to get table wine, yeah. If you're going to drink wine from the local region, like, the amount of wine Nancy and I have, we can't have wine from the local region every day. Oh my God. No, we wouldn't have a business. No, but, but that's the thing. And when you're traveling, you have to have, road snacks and road
Right.
food.
Right.
You,
Yeah.
you have to,
Yeah.
you have to.
Yeah.
So do you take snacks with you on these cruises that you go on?
No, no, I don't need to. There's plenty of food on the ships themselves. It's only when we do the road trips. And again, with Norway going into the small market, so we didn't see these big, huge uh, international stores
Mm,
in terms of at least grocery stores. You've got the clothing stores, but um, we
mm,
were in the small towns and we went to the small markets. So, we would get some of the local products. So Norway is
mm.
known for their brown cheese, which is, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but it's called Brunoset. Brun, yeah,
You,
Brunost. I'm sorry,
you go,
Brunost.
girl.
Brunost. And they kind of caramelize the milk sugars as they're making the cheese. It's very unique to them.
Oh,
And I developed a taste for it when we were there. So anytime we would be in the store, we'd get some of that, and that would be part of our charcuterie. And then the other thing I developed a taste for, and I don't remember what it was called, but it was in a tube, kind of like a toothpaste tube. But it was basically a fish paste, so it was kind of a little bit on the salty side. And I like that because I kind of like my salty snacks,
mm-hmm. Me
and
too.
I'd put that on crackers as well. So we would we'd look for the local products in the grocery stores and try them. And the worst thing happens is you don't like it, and so you waste a couple dollars. But
But you tried it and you get a taste for what
oh
they
yeah,
do,
yeah. Um,
you know?
but yeah, it's we did quite a bit of that, especially once we were in the more in the northern part of Norway, and weren't eating out as much. Now, when we were in what they call the southern central part of Norway, which is where all the fjords are and where a lot more of the tourists travel,
Mhm.
we would be eating out a lot more in
Mm,
for lunch and dinners, and then breakfasts were in the hotels. It was typical international type of buffet breakfasts with
mm.
it, they would have salmon, and it would have, oh, the bread. Oh my gosh, the bread there was so good. So good. Nice, sturdy bread with crispy crust and just,
Oh, the
oh,
crust.
oh,
I want the crust.
yes.
It's all about the crust.
It is all about the crust. But
I
oh, the
don't
bread, the
understand
bread
why
was so good in Norway.
this is what I don't understand about cutting the crust off for high tea. I
Well,
just did a
because
show
it's
about this,
mushy.
but I
I mean,
mean,
it's
but
yeah.
I want the crust. Like
Yes.
you know, I want to be in the kitchen grabbing the crust as they're doing all the, here's all the refined stuff. I'm in the kitchen going, I don't want to be out there with all the people, being fancy. I want to be in the kitchen. And yeah, you can still give me the champagne, but it'll probably be in a mug and I want the crust. That's how I
That's
am.
me too. If it's a fresh loaf of French bread, I'm ripping off the the end piece. That's what I want. But oh,
I
the bread
know.
was so good in Norway, and and then
Oh,
they'd have things for the the European market with salami and things like that the Europeans like that for breakfast, and then they would have the eggs and bacon for the American and the British travelers. So the
mm,
usually the breakfast buffets at the various hotels were quite diverse, and there was certainly no lack of choices for everyone. But I usually ended up going for the local Norwegian salmon because I'm in Norway, and so I want some good Norwegian salmon and some of that good crispy brown bread and some of that brown cheese. Oh yeah, that was
oh.
very good.
Now, did the salmon, was that different? Is it different, like from the salmon you would find in like the Pacific Northwest or, you know?
Um, well, it's like the lox type of smoked
Oh,
salmon
okay.
that was usually served at the buffets at the breakfast. I couldn't tell the difference. I mean, it probably is
It's just,
species wise, but yeah, I really couldn't tell the difference.
she
Yeah.
liked it. She
Oh
liked
yeah,
it.
I liked it.
She
Yeah.
liked
Well,
it.
I love salmon. I love salmon. And then their bakeries were very good. So you were talking about high tea. So they don't do high tea, but we would inevitably, by the afternoon, because it was often kind of a little bit wet and cold, look for a place to stop and have a cappuccino we'd look for a bakery. We started putting in bakeries in the Google Maps and driving to them and have a cappuccino and then some kind of a baked good. And
Mm.
their baked goods were very good too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Europe owns baked goods. They own
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Um,
They do.
they
Yeah.
do.
I,
I agree.
I mean, really, the entire, like outside, inside, all around that
Hmm.
entire region, like you're good. You're good for it, you know.
I go
Um,
through withdrawals when I come back from Europe because there's always it doesn't matter where you go, and even here in Norway with us doing buying and kind of doing our own grocery shopping and all, I still felt like we ate very well, and then I come home
mm.
here and I just feel, especially with baked goods and breads, I just go through withdrawals because I just can't find that
Yeah,
same
this is
quality.
why the diversity of culture is so important
Hmm.
because, you know, I want more baked goods, you go to an area like in the Southwest in Tucson, you're going to go to a Mexican bakery and get
Oh, that's
amazing
fine.
foods.
Yeah, yeah.
You can get those kinds of things. And I
Hmm.
love to shop by regionality and international foods, like I put Marmite on my toast. Sorry, everybody. I love my Marmite. I love it. I will do anything to get my Marmite. I'll make my friends drive over or fly over here with it. But this is really exciting. We're going to be doing a live podcast with Rose. If it can happen technically, this is what we are planning on.
She talked
She's
me into it, people.
I did it. Yeah, I did it because, Big Blend Radio started live and we know all things can go wrong. And as soon as I think I've been through everything that possibly could go wrong, something else is new. So she's going to be on a cruise ship,
Of course.
and so she's like, well, can we record while I'm on there? I'm going to do this story on Princess Cruises and give people tips and pointers. And something in the back of my head woke me up at 2 a.m. Maybe I had too much wine and said, Rose needs to do a live podcast from a cruise ship because we've never done that. So why not? And she said, all right, well, it's your idea.
We'll
Right? It's
try it.
like, let's try it. And we don't
Why
know if
not?
it's going to work. Um, but I think it'd be really cool because internet has really changed on cruise ships, right? And that's part of your whole conversation for next month for March is cruise ships. So
Right.
everyone, Princess especially. And so we're going to be doing this live on Thursday, February 27th at 1 p.m. Central Time. So that'd be 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have the links up on blendradioandtv.com. Get our newsletter over there. We'll have it on social media, and also follow Rose on social media at Quiltripping. And we are going to do a live show, and I'm sure it will work because dang it, I know she has wine on those ships. So if she has wine, it's all fine, right? By the way, what happens about libations in Norway?
So we had beer. I'm trying to think because I'm not a big alcohol drinker because I can't drink a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, no,
My
no.
body doesn't tolerate it. My husband would try a lot of the draft beers and local beers, and he enjoyed those. On the ship, on the Hurtigruten ship, that they actually had some wine made in Norway. So further south, like south of Oslo, I guess there's some areas that they're trying to grow grapes and make their own grapes. But yeah, mostly it was beer, if I'm remembering correctly.
Every time you talk about that cruise ship, the Hurtigruten, I
Hurtigruten.
think okay, I just think
Hurtigruten.
of the
Yeah.
hurdy-gurdy man from Donovan, the song.
Yeah. Hurtigruten.
I'm sorry. I do. So everyone stay tuned for Thursday, the 27th of February. And no matter what, Rose is here every second Thursday. So that episode will be there as usual, but we're going to still do this live thing. If it doesn't work, no matter what, we'll still record the podcast all about Princess Cruises, right? That's the main
Yes.
focus.
Yes. Tips for
And
cruising on Princess. I
and
will.
yes,
Yeah, I'll
and
be on a Princess ship. I'm doing a transatlantic from Fort Lauderdale to Spain, and so I'll be on one of my favorite Princess ships, and so I've done quite a few Princess cruises now in the last few years. This is my 10th ship, so I've got a lot of tips on how to get the most out of a Princess cruise.
well, we're going to see if we can be live. I think this is going to be so much fun. And I love this topic for everyone. And again, Rose is here every second Thursday. So stay tuned. Go to quiltripping.com and also keep up with us at bigblendradio.com so you can listen to the episodes and for the live podcast as well. Thank you, Rose. Happy travels. I know you got more going on soon. So we'll chat again.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us for Quiltripping Travel with Rose, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring award-winning travel writer and photographer Rose Palmer. Join us for new episodes every second Thursday, and keep up with Rose at quiltripping.com and follow us at bigblendradio.com.